right now the UK is drowning in denial, trying to convince itself that multiculturalism is working. This idea that you can just combine cultures and they should just live in harmony is a complete facade.
During the 2001 election campaign, Margaret Thatcher provided Britain's elite class with a warning about the destruction coming to our United Kingdom. While campaigning for the notoriously wet then Tory leader William Hague, she said, "I don't wish to have what they call a multicultural society. I hate these phrases. Multicultural society? A multicultural society will never be a united society." The words of Margaret Thatcher in 2001. But to their eternal shame, the Conservative Prime Ministers that followed her never heeded her warning, rather embracing the woke rhetoric which is tearing down Western civilization. But are the leaders who could be charged with saving Britain in the future finally waking up? At the ARC conference in London, new Tory leader Kemi Badenoch sparked lefty outrage because she actually said some cultures are better than others. So much for not saying the quiet part out loud. Opined best for Britain. They're not even pretending anymore. Oh my God, I hope that is true. Because I fear unless the multicultural society myth dies soon, then the United Kingdom will be lost forever. That is what we're fighting for. That's how serious this is. So here's what Ms. Badenoch, who, let me be frank, has had a disastrous start to her job, told ARC.
Free speech matters. Some cultures are better than others, and it's only contentious to say this because honesty has become impossible. People should not be afraid to speak out. We will be proud of our country. Most of all, we need to get up off our knees and start fighting, not just for the UK, but for the West and our values again. We will have to decide between the true but hard way that needs tough decisions and bravery, or whether we have more slogans and announcements but no plan. Don't listen to the media class complain about populism. The very essence of democracy is acknowledging the will of everyday people and then actually making it happen.
Now, that speech even received a strong endorsement from her likely successor, internal rival Robert Jenrick, who posted on X, "Kemi is spot on. As a case in point, cultures that practice female genital mutilation or child marriage are obviously inferior to ours." It shows how deranged some left-wing politicians have become that this needs to be said. Some people want to repudiate our culture, driven by misplaced guilt at our own success. But it's perfectly normal to have loyalty to your own culture, norms, traditions, institutions. In fact, it would be strange not to. Our culture is one of the best, and we shouldn't be embarrassed to say so. We must protect it, which is why the institutions of the state must promote it, and we desperately need radically lower migration in line with historical norms. But then this morning, Nigel Farage took to the ARC stage for the first time, along Jordan Peterson, and blew apart the myth that the Conservatives will have a chance to preserve anything.
First things first, the right is not split in this country. The Conservative Party is not on the right in any measurable way. 14 years that brought us the highest tax burden since 1947, 14 years that saw mass immigration, legal mass immigration on a scale hitherto never even dreamt of, 14 years that saw illegal immigration, small boats crossing the channel, and the government completely incapable of dealing with it because they couldn't face up to what membership of the European Convention on Human Rights was all about. And 14 years that saw net zero enshrined into law by a Conservative government and Boris Johnson, Theresa May, as evangelical about net zero as the current Ed Miliband.
So does Reform UK have the team to save the country? Well, Reform's most, I would say, experienced and potentially exciting MP, Rupert Lowe, offered the type of fighting talk we need, posting, "Of course, some cultures are better than others. I'm proud of the English culture, welcoming, decent, fair, funny, hardworking, polite, punctual, dry, inventive, witty, honest, plucky, civil, generous, modest. A very special group of people. There is much to fight for." There is. There really is. Which is why it was so disgusting last night. Did you see this? To witness our failed embarrassment of a Prime Minister, Slippery Starmer, announce to the world that he is planning to send Brits to fight in Ukraine while reading off his notes like a robotic schoolboy.
And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others.
What a joke. As Adrian Hilton rightly put it, this isn't trivial. We all know that the Prime Minister has a voice coach who is so crucial to his presentation that she could apparently breach COVID lockdown rules, but this is dire. You'd think that such an experienced barrister would be adept at extempore reasoning, but no. Then there's the point that there's just no way in hell the British public are going to accept putting our lads into another pointless war because of a military-industrial complex that Labour has. We saw that with Tony Blair. As Reform's Rupert Lowe put it, we can't even protect our own borders, and Starmer is aiming to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. Warmongering politicians have got far too many British sons and daughters killed for no reason. Our hollowed-out armed forces deserve so much better. But that post actually prompted the Tory frontbencher Chris Philp to reply about Rupert Lowe, "Is he suggesting World War II and the Falklands?" Had no reason. Of course he wasn't, and he was owned by Rupert quite quickly. He responded saying, "If this is the best the Shadow Home Secretary can come up with, the Tories really are finished." And I do think that is what the Conservative Party are failing to understand right now. We are in a brand new era of politics where the Westminster establishment and the MSM simply cannot understand that thanks to platforms like this, we see through their lies. We see through their deception. We see through their gaslighting. Yet they continue to peddle their insanity. Like CBS in America suggesting to the American Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, I can't even believe that I'm saying this, but watch and it's true, that free speech caused World War II.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship
I have to disagree with
was
you.
specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
Of course it's not. Of course it's not. But the mainstream media will do anything, absolutely anything, to link the Trump administration to Nazism. As Europe's potential saviour, the outspoken new American VP J.D. Vance put it, this is a crazy exchange. Does the media really think the Holocaust was caused by free speech? But he wasn't finished there. After his Munich speech of the century, which has put European leaders, including slippery Starmer here in the UK, on notice, Vance added, the transatlantic elite have created so many institutions to silence their own people and delegitimize the beliefs of the public. Of course, the Biden administration was the worst offender. He added, even if you disagree with me substantively, these institutions have revealed themselves to be so brittle. AfD is in second place in Germany. The, in quotation marks, far right keeps getting closer in France. Wake up. And JD, I would like to assure you, we are awake. It is our leaders who are not. It is our mainstream media, which is not. It is our deep state, which now works against our wishes. And that is why a revolution to end mass immigration and the multiculturalism myth is coming to save Britain. Now, let me bring in today's superstar panel. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected, but I've been thinking a lot lately about the need for personal protection online from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers. But don't worry, I have found the fail-safe solution. And what's more, this VPN is a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible, easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activities stay safe, allowing you to shop, to stream, to browse, to conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online. This service allows you to access your favorite entertainment or news shows or channels, or access, by the way, to streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, and Peacock. Or if you've got a streaming service already, but your favorite show happens to be geo-blocked, maybe on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus, within seconds, you can actually be watching as if you are in another country. This is such a good service. Really helps, by the way, if you're traveling for work or on holiday and you want to get your favorite local content from home, including sports, which is very often subject to geo-blocking. Plus, Surfshark is an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries which block some of these services. Effectively, you can watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It is true freedom. There's also so much you can do with VPNs, right? It's a way to save you money and get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying from. So you can actually sign in to multiple countries and check the price before buying. There are other benefits too. Surfshark is available to use on unlimited devices, which means your entire household, so your husband, your wife, your kids, can stay safe with just one subscription. And there are over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, meaning a world of choices at your fingertips with 24/7 customer service if it is your first time using a VPN. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, Surfshark is so confident they're the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So go to www.surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. And I am delighted to have returning today the YouTuber and conservative voice based and bougie, and the columnist and conservative commentator Sophie Corcoran. So great to have you both here. So, based and bougie. Why on earth did our leaders not listen to Margaret Thatcher, by the way, back in 2001? But do you have any hope, given what Kemi Badenoch told the ARC conference?
Well, in the words of the infamous Wendy Williams, denial is a river in Egypt. And right now, the UK is drowning in denial, trying to convince itself that multiculturalism is working. This idea that you can just combine cultures and they should just live in harmony is a complete facade. For example, you would have the LGBT community, they believe love is love. Then you'll have the Muslim community, they believe that if you are gay, you should be hung. How in the world are they going to live in harmony? The same thing that we saw with the grooming scandal. Here in Europe, we believe in women's rights. We believe my body, my choice. Whereas, certain parts of the world, they believe that no, your body is our choice and we can do what we want with it. So multiculturalism is not working. And I know this because if you look to the UAE, the reason why the UAE is thriving right now is because they're not focused on multiculturalism. They are focused on unity. And that's what the UK should be focusing itself on, unity. Everybody unifying under one ideology, under one religion, under one political state. And that should be our aim, specifically under one religion. So Kemi Badenoch's comment was not offensive. It was not anything controversial, is the truth. There are certain cultures that are more superior than others, and we need to start admitting that. And I feel like Kemi Badenoch, that comment actually gave me some hope that finally someone in the political, frame is actually admitting that multiculturalism is not working. We should not be striving for multiculturalism. We should be striving for unity.
Amen. Just like Thatcher wanted back in 2001. Now, Sophie Corcoran, you have been on your own little journey since you were last here, because, of course, then Nigel Farage got up on stage and said, well, it doesn't make a blind bit of difference, Jordan Peterson, what Kemi Badenoch says, because the Conservative Party have proven for the past 14 years they were not at all conservative. And some would say against all odds, Sophie, given how connected you were to the Conservative Party, since you were last here, you have now defected and are a member of Reform UK. So do you agree with Farage's claim?
Well, I actually defected before I was on your show last time. I just didn't say publicly. But yeah,
how
I do
dare
agree.
you keep that secret, Sophie? From me.
No,
Come on.
But yeah, so I do agree. I think one of the reasons why I defected is because I wrote a piece for the Daily Express detailing how immigration has essentially stolen my generation's future in this country. I mean, the likelihood of my generation getting, housing, having working public services, my children being safe in their own schools, that was all taken away from my generation because politicians I'm not going to say politicians, because the Conservative Party prioritised cheap labour and short-term economic growth over my generation's future in Britain. And now many of my generation are finding that we actually don't really have a future in this country at all. And I kind of didn't mean to radicalise myself while writing that article, but when I wrote that article, I couldn't sleep that night because I was just so worried about actually what this government has done to my generation. And I feel like, yes, it's easy to say one thing, and I think politicians find it very easy to say one thing, but acting is another. And sometimes I'm just not quite sure that these guys are actually genuine.
And there is big political movement happening. The tectonic plates are shifting. For the first time, YouGov, which is the main MSM polling company at least, has Nigel Farage ahead of Keir Starmer in the favourability polling. And Reform UK is now the most political party in the country, based in Bougie.
Yes, the reason why Reform UK is growing at the speed that it's growing is because we've absolutely lost trust in the Conservative Party. We've lost trust in the Labour Party. They've made too many promises that they could not keep. Whereas Reform, even though they've done and said things, Nigel Farage, that's a little bit controversial, at this point, they are our only hope. And not only that, I feel as though Reform, they appeal to a new generation, which is this Gen Z generation. Believe it or not, Gen Z is becoming more conservative. And Nigel Farage and the Reform Party do represent that conservative culture. So it was always going to happen. And this is just a reflection of just how the tides are turning in the UK.
And the thing is, right, then you have Starmer thinking that the way to, I guess, get the public on side, and this is a cynical thing, it's a cynical thing that many leaders have done in history, is, let's put Brits in a war. That will get us somehow connected to this patriotic fervour. Now, number one, I think he's wrong, because I think we've learnt from Iraq and never again will we trust our Labour Prime Minister on this. Number two, in terms of presentation, I was so embarrassed by this man with his paper, reading off a script, acting like a robot. I actually could not have felt more disappointed in a leader than when I saw this last night.
And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others.
I mean, seriously. Could he not have got rid of that paper, Sophie? Just from a straight political optics point of view, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely embarrassing for Britain for us to look and have this man representing us in such a serious moment. I mean, I've got a uni presentation in a couple of weeks, and we are quite frankly not even allowed to read off of a PowerPoint or use our notes. So if I have to do that in uni, surely our Prime Minister, with this God or holy voice coach that is apparently worthy of all of God's graces. But I think, to be fair, he is a lawyer, and I think he needs to sue the voice coach because clearly she hasn't done a very good job because he's awful. But I agree, it's just totally embarrassing, totally unprofessional, and there's no way in God's green earth that we should be sending young boys to fight a war in Ukraine when we aren't even trying to secure our own country's borders. We aren't even trying to provide young people with a proper future in this country. We're not even trying to be, to fund our armed forces properly. And for too long, especially Labour Prime Ministers, what happened is they fall apart in the polls because they cannot govern and they use war and they try and basically, and Tony Blair was massively inspired, and this is the reason why he went to Iraq. He was massively inspired by Margaret Thatcher because she obviously was falling in the polls quite a lot and then went to the war in the Falklands, and it kind of saved her premiership at the beginning because everybody loved her for it. So Tony Blair tried to sort of do the same thing. And Keir Starmer, again, he's trying to do the same thing. Prime ministers in this country think that taking Britain to war is going to fix themselves in the polling. But it's not going to work for Keir Starmer. No one wants to see our own armed forces as a country when we can't even deport our own criminals because they don't like foreign chicken nuggets. I'm sorry, but it's true. I'm not but what is there to fight for in this country when they've let absolutely everybody in, when they've destroyed our culture? There's nothing for young people to fight for. What are we fighting for? You can't get a house. There's no British culture. No one's proud of British history anymore. What is there to fight for?
A damning indictment, but one that I think, Sophie, is unfortunately very true. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.